of the important points therein and try to link it with the and where she left, presuming that you all know about it, I would like to still again talk about that what is the definition of direct selling, or what we actually mean by direct selling. Now, direct selling means a person to person or a face to face selling or marketing of products and services, and this is done through an interface of a direct seller by an explanation or demonstration of products. So any product sales is preceded by an explanation about the products or a demonstration about the products. And this action takes place not at any particular shop floor or a commercial place, but it is at buyer's home. Now, the most important key factor which I would like to now underline is that the incentive is paid to direct sellers is always factored on product sales. It recognizes the value of marketing and sales support services provided by the sponsoring direct seller to their respective sales organization that has resulted in additional sales for the direct selling entity and their respective sales organization. Direct selling and its incentive distribution pattern, which is nothing but multi-level marketing, is often confused with money circulation, pyramid and Ponzi scheme. Now, why this is happening? What are the reasons? Would just like to analyze now. But before doing it, we should go back to the act, the PCMC Act we talk about, or the Price Cheat and Money Circulation Banning Act of 1978. Let me tell you, this act, as the date shows, was enacted in the year 1978, much before the advent of the direct selling business in India, because this industry is just 20 years old and this statute was made much earlier to that. And under this act, there are two very important definitions. One is about the definition of a money circulation scheme, and there is a definition of a price cheat scheme. And this act proposes to ban both, and its intention was to control and prohibit financial fraud or investment related schemes which has been categorized as a serious cognizable offense. And let me tell you, India is not the only country which recognizes this. World over, every act recognizes the same, because when it is a serious financial fraud, it is a financial fraud across geography. It cannot be something only in India and not applicable to the rest of the world. So the flow of logic goes accordingly. So there is no difference, there is no differentiation, but the intention of the act was to control only financial fraud. And if you go by the definition which is given about money circulation scheme, this is the entire definition, which is quite a lengthy one. So I'm not going into the details, but trying to segregate it and separate it in a more simpler fashion which can be easily understood. All that it talks about is that there must be a scheme, right? This scheme should be intended for making quick and easy money. So quick and easy money is one of the main ingredients of this particular act. Now, as we talked about product sales, supporting the sales organization, your pay lines being limited, finite, it all shows that product sales is not a easy and quick money, right? Second point is that it must be shown to depend upon an event or contingency relative or applicable to enrollment of members into the scheme. That is, you make quick money simply by the act of enrollment. You enroll somebody, there is some investment collection that is routed, that is actually circulated within the organization, and that is where you make the simple and quick money. And it is not that, these are independent conditions. These are all dependent conditions. So all the three parameters have to be simultaneously satisfied to attract the mischief of the money circulation scheme. Now let's see what are the legal safeguards that we have for the industry to avoid that this act becomes applicable to us. As Chavi has already told you or talked about when we talk about the Consumer Protection Act which was enacted, the whole idea was that customers' right to choose, to be informed, to be aware of it, their right to safety and their right to redressal. Now all these things should be properly upheld, and this is what this channel of distribution tries to do. But nevertheless, since the decision of the consumer or the customer may be instinctive or impulsive, it may not be a programmed one, like the one when you go. There is an element of surprise when you try to go to a store. So every product, as Ms. Chavi was talking about, is guided by a buyback guarantee. That is, post sale of product, even after the transaction is severed, if you are not happy with the product, there is a cooling off period, after which also you can return the product back and take the entire money. So that talks about the high quality of the product, the utility of the product, the value of the product, and the confidence that the promoters of the product have in the kind of delivery they are giving to the consumer. Now, when we talk about the characteristics of the direct selling as one of the different channels and an alternate channel of distribution, and as she already explained, it is part of the non-store retail format. It is not the brick and mortar format, but it is the direct sellers going and canvassing about the products. So buying decisions take place at customers' home, and it is preceded by a product demonstration. So unlike shops, productivity and consumer reach per distributor would be quite limited. There is no doubt about it, because in a particular shop, hundreds of people can land up during the day. But if a direct seller has to go along with the product, go to consumer's home, customer's home, and make a demonstration of the product, his productivity obviously would be limited, and that requires that we have more number of feet on the street as a necessary requirement to scale up the business to a commercial level. That's why it requires a large sales field force or a sales organization to carry out this job, right? And for that, what is the normal corollary is that you require a direct selling organization to give functionality, form, and structure to this business. So enrollment and management of the large sales field force directly by the company is quite difficult. Thus, the enrollment and management of the sales force are outsourced under this business model to the network of direct sellers. And what is delegated, or what is actually given to them, or what is outsourcing pattern, that sales support function of recruitment, training, and motivation of the direct sellers or the new distributors is done by the existing direct sellers. And to do that, a performance-oriented system of managing the sales force is created by promotion of direct sellers as supervisors, as managers, and as directors in their own direct sales organization or within the sales hierarchy. And let me tell you, India is a signatory to the WTO agreement and one of the biggest beneficiaries of this business process outsourcing, and this industry does the same. So when we talk about incentivizing these direct sellers, how it happens, how to keep the sales force motivated. Now these direct sellers, as the definition talks about, will legitimately earn incentive from their direct sales effort. That is a retail sale they individually do while canvassing for a one-to-one sales. So they will purchase the product at wholesale price and sell it at the retail price. But at the same time, they have additional sales support function which they will render to their own respective sales organizations. Thus, the income plan for incentivizing the direct sellers or the multi-level incentive distribution pattern within the direct sales organization to keep the sales force dynamic, vibrant, and motivated. So from here we can find out the role of the direct sellers gets augmented or transformed from not being just sales personnel but also business opportunity providers. They also become independent entrepreneurs and they become the leaders of their own respective sales organization. So there is a process of growth of direct sellers when they join this business. But to keep this business absolutely performance oriented, as Chavi was talking about how this is done, we have various concepts within the marketing plan. Now one such thing is how you outperform your sponsors, how payment caps are ensured, how the pyramid structure, because any organization for that matter would be a pyramid. But what is important, the person lying at the bottom of the pyramid, whether they have the right to come to the top or not, if they are better performers. And this is exactly what is done under a genuine and legitimate marketing plan or business model. So there would be cutoff limit, there would be outperformance ideas, and irrespective of the size of the sales organization, let me reiterate this point that incentive payment is always limited to few levels in the sales hierarchy where the actual sales support or the business support function is rendered.